Hello, 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 Paul. We are live again on our regular Thursday. How are you today?
Yeah, we're good. Very, very good. How are you?
Grateful for a bit of sun that we have lately. I feel we've been like 5, 6 weeks of clouds. I'm like, I'm not in the Netherlands anymore. I am in Barcelona. Where's the sun?
Yeah, I've actually been. I was in the Netherlands a week ago, and the weather was beautiful, sunshine, and I was ringing back to the office here in Barcelona, and they had sideways rain. So definitely unusual weather in Europe at the moment.
I've been watching the Weather Channel more than ever, to be honest. I think in the past 10 years, I was like, when can I plan a hike? When can I plan some beach
Yeah,
time? But it's coming. It's coming.
yeah.
Hello, everybody joining us today. It's going to be a super interesting session, I feel. For those who are new here, we do fair dialogues more or less on a regular basis, but to be honest, in preparation for our conference in May, 15th of May, the annual Workplace Inclusion Conference, we try to do them with those who have been very generous to us and have been partnering with us in spreading the word about the conference and being in general quite part of this champions network. And Paul has been there from day one, not just in the online, but having you at the conference last year and getting your feedback and getting to talk to you about this. It was really a pleasure. So thank you so much for like being on the journey of FAIR from the beginning.
No, thank you. I mean, it was. I got the invite from you for the conference last year, and it was fantastic. Actually, it was genuinely one of a kind. And anybody signing in now who hasn't got a ticket yet, please go and buy one. Really great. It is very, very different. I mean, I've been attending conferences and things like that for the best part of 20 years in
Yeah.
different formats and stuff like that. And I think the audience and the speakers in that one were the most aligned of anybody, as in everybody had the same goal, the same mission, and genuinely trying to learn from each other, which was hugely different and inspiring to see compared to other conferences where there's generally kind of people selling at each other or kind of have ulterior motives for being there or those kind of things. So the kind of the togetherness at that conference was pretty special, and hopefully, and I have every confidence it'll be the same this year.
Oh my God. I didn't, we didn't prep this, everybody. So, Paul, thank you so much. This means a lot. But I was ready with something. I was actually ready with a 20% off code that people can benefit from, specifically from Workfully. So, we will know that this is the Workfully network. I've posted it now online, and I think we can put it here as well. Perfect. So, it pops in, and maybe it could stay for the rest of the session. But so nice to hear your experience. And yes, we prepared some very, very interesting sessions as well. But back to our thing. I think we actually have quite a few of random conversations. I feel you and I. From time to time, we pop in some WhatsApp and like, Juana, what do you think about this? Paul, what do you think about this? And I think we have some similar values when it comes to recruitment and the talent world, where, yes, we need to kind of push for progress. We need to understand how we make things easier for stakeholders, for businesses, for recruitment teams. But in the same time, we are very close to like building communities, and you have your own kind of almost monthly meeting, which is packed at Norscan House on various topics with various kind of market leaders here in Spain, in Barcelona. So I feel somehow we connect a lot on those topics, but I'm just like, we have this very specific challenge I feel coming up towards us, which is we see more platforms, more SaaS, more kind of innovation, technical innovation, but also process innovation that tends to exclude the human touch, the human involvement for specific, hopefully not so useful pieces. But there's a transformation there. I don't think we finished the journey to figure out what's the right solution. So this is why we are here today. And yeah, I don't know if you want to add something to like why this topic for you is important.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I mean, first of all, the company I'm working with is building a piece of technology. I mean, that's what we are trying to accomplish, a marketplace tool. Um, but I think the point you make about the increase in technology and automation and tools in the world at the moment is kind of going through the roof, and AI has powered some of that, not just because it's a useful tool in itself, but it's allowed people to build tools as well. You can
Mhm.
build this also there's something new coming up every single week, and I think just at the time in the world where we could do with a bit more human connection and a bit more kind of staying together and stuff that
Yeah.
with kind of the geopolitical situations and things that are happening, I think that we really need to be careful that we're still talking to each other and we're still interacting and we're still holding on to what's really important um, about our industry, recruitment, people operations, HR. I think they're all interlinked, and I think that the majority of people that are in one of those verticals or in that space came in because they really enjoy the human interaction. I don't think you can stay in it for any significant length of time unless you do enjoy human interactions, because it's a big part of what we all do. And so I think we need to make sure that remains the case, and that we use it much more sensibly, and that we're conscious of both the use cases and the ethics behind what we're doing as well.
Yeah. It's very interesting you're saying that, because last week I had a coffee with a potential mentee. She was like, "Oh, I'm a bit new to the industry," and I'm like, "Why did you get in the industry? Like, why do you do recruitment?" It's like, "I just like working with people," and I feel sometimes recruiters are just like drowned in tools at this point, and they're like, "Well, I don't have time to get feedback. I don't have time to kind of connect with this hiring manager because I need to fill in this." And this is a conversation I feel we've been having since I started, which is way too long ago. Uh, and right, but good stuff and not so good stuff. I recognize you kind of went all in, so I just want to take it back a little bit and maybe have you introduce yourself to those who are joining us today, and maybe also a little bit about Workfully. I'm sure all our attendees from Spain know, but we have attendees from a lot of other parts of Europe. So yeah, if you can quickly tell us a bit about your background and your current focus.
Yeah, I'll keep the intro about me quite brief, because it's going to be the least interesting thing we talk about today. But I've been in TA and recruitment for again 15 years-ish, I guess. I pivoted from engineering because I did like human interactions and the kind of decided I wanted something a bit more in that world. So moved into originally agency recruitment and then grew that up and ended up sort of falling in love with TA and then HR and people operations. In there, and then in terms of Workfully, where I am today, what we're building is a marketplace. So we're building a piece of technology that allows independent freelance recruiters, so completely decentralized, it's completely global around the world, to show the best version of themselves to companies around the world that need external recruitment support. So the platform allows them to interact. There is a system in there where they can add content, they can be rated and reviewed for the actual things they do, rather than the logos they've worked for, or the job they had with the shiny blue suit or whatever, which was the norm in recruitment when I first got into the industry, and those kind of things. And trying to create a decentralized meritocracy for the independent recruiter, which is becoming a much more prevalent thing, because we all know about the layoffs that kind of happened in the tech market in particular a couple of years ago, and so recruitment was very heavily hit there. And so there's a lot of people trying to make their own way and use their skills. But also as well, I think companies are looking for a way to access that talent pool where they kind of have an element of trust. They kind of know what's happening. They can see the genuine data of that recruiter. So what's that recruiter's time to hire? What's their kind of skills? What have other companies said about them? So that kind of trust pilot element added to it as well. So that's what we're trying to build. We got our funding just over a year ago, the first in our sort of seed round, and we've been frantically building ever since. It's certainly not finished yet. We're still working tirelessly on it, but we hope to have something that's a genuine option for people. I don't think we're not crazy enough to think we're going to come in and knock LinkedIn off with one. We work with LinkedIn; they're a partner of ours. So it's not. We're not trying to be this big disruptor that changes everything, but we think there's an alternative to be had there for some people.
So you had already, I guess, so many iterations of what is the technological innovation that would have this significant impact on how hiring outcomes can be improved by maintaining this focus on trust and this focus on know people beyond their title, right? Like give more information to those teams that need support from recruiters and from specialists in this area, but do it through a platform kind of environment. um, this idea of decentralized recruitment marketplace, I believe has been tried a few times, not enough. I know of a couple of initiatives more in the US because the market is a bit more lax, I would say, in terms of how you contract people and you pay and you all this, while here might be a little bit unclear, I think, just confusing. So you're bringing quite a lot of clarity in that space. You're bringing quite a lot of opportunity for those, especially who maybe do not find a place now in internal, or they do prefer kind of owning that career path of being somebody who contributes on very specific projects, very specific organizations. But taking it back a little bit to the platform itself, and to how do you blend a little bit this idea of like, okay, technological innovation but human touch?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, we want to use technology to empower the recruiters, not to replace them. That's not what we're looking to do. And I think my first day in recruitment a long time ago, someone was sort of talking about how LinkedIn was going to replace recruiters, and then it was something else, and then it was something else. And I don't think
Yeah.
that's the case. But I think that we can use the tools to actually enhance the human touch. I think that some of the stuff that's around today actually does that in a really powerful way. I would say that video annotation, so some of the AI tools like MetaView and things like that, which I think was one of the first to kind of break ground in that market, and really good. I mean, even on a general Google Meets meeting now, you have that facility to turn on a completely annotated version of what you're doing, and what that does is allow you to be more present in the conversation. I mean, unfortunately, I can't break bad habits. I have a pad and a pen. I do the annotation, but I'm yeah, I'm too kind of way to not write things down while I'm talking. But being present in that conversation and knowing you don't need to frantically write notes about everything that's happening in there because it's being annotated and you've got that and you can summarize it afterwards, giving you more time to have a real conversation with them, to catch the intonation in their voice when they say something, so that you can read between the lines on certain things, or you can ask a follow-up question where maybe you would have missed it because you were too busy just writing down the coding languages they know, or the engineering credentials they have on that, and then also just giving time back in the process, so kind of automated scheduling of workflows, and automated processing, and these kind of things, just so hey, you're getting these reminders of things you need to do, touch points you need to do. But I'm a big believer in that touch points should still be as human as they can be, and as, I guess traditional as they always were. I think that those really add value and trust into the process when you feel that the contact you're having, whether it's candidate or company, through the recruiter is genuine and curated for you, not necessarily a bulk mail.
This is very interesting. And I think indeed we see, especially from other platforms or tools, just eliminate your recruitment team, just kind of minimize the contact you have there, skip some stages if you can, all this kind of hooks, right, that you see used here and there. They're also a lie, to be honest, I feel, because it doesn't work like that. Ultimately, most hiring managers, even if they are super like focused on time, right, and they realize very quickly that they need somebody to properly filter. They need somebody to properly have conversations and give them good insights, right? Things that they cannot see in a CV. But this idea of giving time back, this is maybe what everybody wants to buy, and they will pay a lot of money, recruiters and businesses alike. And this idea also of just being a little bit more in the moment, more present, more mindful in having those conversations with candidates, which again has been a behavioral thing that we need to improve in ourselves, just paying attention. But then if we have the right environment for us, maybe it helps us a little bit more. Can you hear me, see me okay? Maybe I see a little bit of a blocker from time to time, so
you paused it a little bit briefly. I didn't know whether it was my side or not. I was just closing down windows on my other screen quickly in case I had bad internet.
same here. Everybody who's watching, please comment if everything is all right on your side. I don't necessarily see the live now. And also, if you have any questions for myself, for Paul in this conversation, if you have any opinions or feedback or insights, just put them in the comments of the event and we will put them on screen as we go through. Um, Now, kind of going a little bit to this idea of upskilling, there is a lot of conversation, all right? How do we keep recruiters and how do we keep recruitment teams also up to date, right? And there is a certain push for making sure we invest in training, we invest in the right directions for let's say human centric skills that are valuable in the recruitment process. Where do you think we should push more? What do you think we should focus on?
I think that all human skills should be focused on a little bit more in today's kind of modern workplace. I think to an extent we are losing some of our kind of communication skills as humans, not just people in the workplace. I think a little bit we're very used to digital communication now, and so I think constantly being able to practice and work on your communication skills. So stuff like storytelling, for example, to get a point across or to get a message across or to describe a workplace to somebody that you're trying to talk to a candidate and let them know what the company really looks and feels like to be part of, so that they can make that informed decision for their future. Because I think we forget sometimes that the people we're speaking to are making one of the big life decisions that you make on one of the most stressful things you can do, and one of the things, and I think we can lose that sometimes if we start desensitizing ourselves to the fact it's a human that we're speaking to, and that it's a job and their life and things. So storytelling and empathy, I think, understanding someone's background and similar. I think that one of the great things a recruiter can do, or a talent acquisition person internal there, is to kind of, I'm not a big fan of the term, but go to bat for a candidate. Say, hey, I see this gap, but they told me why, and I believe that this is what it was, and this I would like you to speak to them and kind of push that, because I think particularly women suffer from that massively. That their career trajectory for many reasons can be misaligned stuff, and you have to have that understanding of the story, because there are things you don't want to write on a CV, there are things you don't want to there and stuff. So that kind of empathy side, and then the relationship building is a big one. We talk today that just being able to understand both with the hiring managers, if you're an internal, so what we call stakeholder management, which I'm not a big fan of for internal TM. You should all be colleagues and just working together rather than having to manage each other. But building those relationships so that we can have really open, honest conversations, and we can use clear language. We can be to the point, forceful, without needing to get angry with each other or argue about things. Those kind of stuff is really important when we're talking about people and these big decisions. So I think there's a lot of those skills that are in there, and we should practice them more. Definitely. And so I think that the great kind of starting point for any recruiter is doing lots and lots of screening calls. So it is pretty tiring, and it's not the most fun thing to start with, but it really helps you hone your craft in terms of that relationship building and getting out of that call what you need to understand that candidate, and also allowing them to show their best self as well, giving them time to speak and giving them time to sell themselves into you and tell you everything you need to know about them.
So many good things there. And I couldn't agree more with the storytelling piece. I have had in the past 2 years quite a few friends and colleagues who were searching for new opportunities, whether forced or not. And they were going through the interview process. And maybe because the market is as it is, right? There is a little bit of surplus in certain areas. The other side would not even make the effort so much to not necessarily to sell the company, but just to tell me some insights, right? Like I can see the career side for sure, right? I can see the job description, But people in general need to, as you say, need to make very, very big decisions. And nobody wants to go into a toxic workplace. Nobody wants to go into a place where risk for burnout is high. Nobody wants to go into places where you're like gonna have a lot of bad surprises. And in the same time, you also want to be a bit giddy. Let's say you do like at least the interview, you get the offer, but the sensation at the end of this should be like, oh, this is really interesting. This, I can't wait for this, versus, yeah, it's all right. And I don't know. I hope we're not losing on that. But unfortunately, this feedback from quite a few people in the last couple of months, years, is not very positive in that direction. And the idea of relationship building, I also think somehow that we just don't realize how small the market is. So it's a missed opportunity not to kind of, especially for recruiters, which we always go back more or less to the same talent pool, right? And just having that extra dimension of likability or extra dimension of trust that we have with certain candidates in the market, it could make our lives so much easier, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a really small world. Every industry is a microcosm, and it's really small. I mean, to make the point, I think you touched on the events that we host. I remember not the last one, but one of the previous ones. Yourself and Emily and two or three others,
Yeah.
all that would work together previously in Amsterdam for a completely different country. None of you worked for before anymore. You live in 3 different countries on 2 different continents, and just bumped into each other on a random Thursday night at a work event and stuff. And that's gonna, it shows how small these kind of interactions are, and things come round, and they're circular, and building those relationships and that trust across there will advice for any kind of junior recruiters is to start building those relationships straight away, and no matter who that person is to try and do the best you can on that, because it will come around. And if you stay in any industry, no matter whether it's recruitment or whatever it is, for a serious amount of time, those people will come back round. They'll work for the same companies, or they'll be your customer, or they'll be your supplier, or they'll be whatever. And that relationship building skill is really, really poignant. And we do so much via email and online portal stuff now that jumping on a call and having a chat with someone is so valuable, I think, in all parts of business. I mean, put recruitment to one side. I mean, I think in any business, I think just having those human touch points is hugely valuable.
Shout out to Emily and Kelly, who Paul was referring to, if you are online. Yes, indeed, Kelly from the US. She was accidentally in Barcelona. Emily was on the panel, which we work quite closely together in Amsterdam, and she's going to be here in May as well for the conference. Yes, this is a whole different session, to be honest. Yesterday I was at the university. I do a guest lecturing at the Universitat Autonoma de Barcelona, and there are 4 classes of 20 something years old finishing their studies, and we go through this massive list of, let's say, intercultural skills and kind of interpersonal skills. And I try to like just simplify a little bit what are, my short list. And this active listening is definitely there. The communication and the clarity is definitely there. But also this respect for diversity. I think at the end of the day, especially in recruitment, you will meet people, not just the background and the experience, but their communication style, right? They will be people who are super direct. There will be people who are more fluffy, like me, for example. They will have more analytical people who will not give you any background, and they will give you facts, and numbers. You kind of need to get the whole story from all types of people, right? And then just kind of also give them space to be themselves and create that space for people, versus them trying to fit your assumed recipe or assumed box, because we will assume that, like, oh, I'm interviewing at IBM, I need to put my best suit and all this, and maybe that's not the case, because we've changed a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I first started the industry, suit was obligatory, suit and tie. Whereas now I live in whatever free t-shirts the current company I work for give me. It's definitely a change of word in that regard, and I think that ability to have conversations with people who aren't the same as you, who aren't from the same background, who talk differently or sound differently and stuff, and getting used to having those conversations and understand how people describe themselves differently, and how certain people are more humble, or certain people are more boastful, and things like that, and how the skill as a recruiter is to make sure that they all give you the same level of information.
Yeah.
Some people you'll have to squeeze it out of them because they don't want to
Yeah.
tell you how great they are at stuff because they're being modest.
Yeah.
And that can vary widely from country to country, from different genders, different backgrounds, different religions, because of just the way that people are brought up. They can be very different. And so you have to learn as a recruiter to get the requisite amount of information out of every single person you speak to, not just allow those who are more forceful in giving you that information to kind of end up with the biggest portfolio of information that goes to the hiring manager. And that's a really important skill to learn. And it's not, sometimes it's not comfortable. Sometimes you have to push and pull and kind of really try to squeeze stuff out of people in those calls, but it's valuable. It's you owe it to the candidate on the other side, and you owe it to the company you're recruiting to get the full story from the person you're speaking to.
Yeah, for you and for them, to be honest, as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Small caveat on the suit situation. So I actually have two profiles on LinkedIn, Paul. If you ever type Wana Regescu, you will find the Wana in a blue suit, which has been banned from LinkedIn 10 years ago. And I never bothered to delete the profile. So I had to restart. I was already, a good, but I was working in Ireland and I had the suit. I had to do a photo shoot in a blue suit.
There's a picture of me in a blue suit just on the table there, but it is my wedding day, so that's, I think.
Excusable. Okay, coming back a little bit towards the technology part, I feel there's a very specific area where we really tried to automate. We really try to kind of apply as much technology as possible to simplify this piece, which is giving feedback to candidates and rejecting candidates timely, moving them to the next stage timely, etc. But specifically rejection, right? Or giving them some news. And this is still one of the biggest plagues we are fighting, the ghosting phenomenon. Is there anything at Workfully that maybe you try to do differently? Is there a practical, technical solution, and maybe also an attitude that you try to push there, so you maybe address this challenge?
Yeah, I'd start off by saying, and this I've got the kind of the remit of being in the industry for a long time, that it didn't used to be as prevalent, and I think it's a symptom of the kind of desensitization that we get through this digital interactions that we have on a day-to-day basis, that we feel okay with ghosting and ignoring and just switching off and stuff. I mean, I think one of our random chats that you talked about today was kind of on the subject of the Adolescence, the show, and if none of you have watched it, you should go and watch it and stuff. But one of the themes through that is desensitization in terms of the digital desensitization and how things can be over the top. And I think we spend a lot of time on life interacting digitally through lots of different things, and you kind of forget there's a human at the other end of it sometimes. And I think that doesn't help towards ghosting. So I think we revert back to the conversation at the start of the conversation when we're saying trying to have as many human touch points as you impossible in that, because it's very much more, it's much harder to ghost someone if you've met them twice or if you've had phone calls with them and things like that. You feel you need to give them that feedback on there. I mean, the things that we're putting in, in terms of trying to reduce it is making sure the candidate is more engaged in that feedback loop. We're building in things like automated nudges for our recruiters so that they can reach out. Hey, you haven't spoken to this person. Hey, this person is waiting for feedback. This person, to make sure that we're communicating in the right way. But it's not automated messages to these people. We're nudging internally as much kind of in terms of what we would want to build, rather than pushing out automated messages. That's not to say that some automated messages aren't valid and warranted in some businesses. I mean, the inbound that a company like
High volume, for sure,
or Nike or someone like that, in terms of applications, there has to be an automation that you couldn't cope without it. You just wouldn't be able to. And then tracking where it happens, actually tracking where people got ghosted, where people started into it, and really kind of marking that so you can get the funnel metrics of where it is that it's dropping down, if it's happening at a certain point, if people are getting desensitized, because people can sometimes just get genuinely turned off by something in the process. There's something they weren't expecting. They could have an interview and it went really badly or whatever, or they discovered something during the process that really disengages them. And actually that can be your fault internally, something you didn't tell them, something that they weren't prepared for, or something that's too onerous in the process. You were asking too much of them digitally without engaging with them on a human. and you need to track those metrics. So we're doing those funnel metrics. And then the other thing is that we're in terms of the validation of the recruiters, in terms of the score metrics, we're looking to have that for candidates as well. So like an NPS score, a satisfaction score from the candidates for the recruiters as well. So there's incentives to keep everybody happy in that kind of circle of the transaction of recruitment and candidate and hiring manager and company that hires them, to make sure that everybody's through that process rather than just focusing in one direction. We're all very targeted in internal TA and external recruitment, in keeping our stakeholders, our hiring managers happy, keeping on track with the hires, and that becomes all consuming for some people, and I can understand that, but also keeping the people that didn't get the job and that don't end up being that one dot in the final column, they're just as important to keep happy in there. And if you are doing that, if you're consciously trying to do that throughout there, I think it goes a long way to avoid ghosting. But I mean, to come back to the first line of my answer, I think it is a symptom of today's kind of culture a little bit, and I think we societally have to kind of try and fight that a little bit as well, and try and make sure that we're responding to people and actually getting back to them. But I think those are the things you can do in there to try and reduce it. But I think it's with us now, and I think it's with us to stay. And I would say kind of the cohort we've got watching today, but if there are kind of hiring managers that are kind of it does happen. It's not just the recruiter lost them or didn't whatever.
Oh, no.
It can just happen at any stage, and happens at the most surprising people at the weirdest of stages sometimes. A recruitment career is a never-ending kind of cycle of being completely baffled by human pain sometimes. So, but yeah, no, it is definitely becoming more prevalent, and I think the not losing the human touch within the process will really help reduce that, because it is much easier to ghost a digital communication than it is to someone you've met, or at least virtually met.
I think we are on a path of no return a little bit here, to be honest, because there is so much to do as a recruiter. And this idea of I can press a button and send an automated rejection, talk only about rejection, send a rejection automated email is easy, is fast, is effective. My problem here is and I would support it, a template email versus, an extra sentence from a personalized, sometimes maybe is not doing a lot of big change. But what I'm really annoyed with is the no reply channel, right? Like, okay, I understand I've been rejected, but can I, if I want, is there a channel where I can ask for more details, right? I don't mind getting as a principal,
email, yeah.
right? I feel that's also a lot of that. And the reality, as you say, in my experience, recruiters want to clean their pipelines quite fast, but they need to wait for A, B, C, D person to give them the feedback. That takes a long while sometimes. I've seen that weeks, right? But the ultimate thing is that still the recruiter needs, once they get that feedback, they are the ones who need to press that button and send whatever message they need to send, right? So empowering recruiters to also take some decisions sometimes and say, hey, we're going to put you on hold, just so you know, so you don't need to wait for us, because we are just not able to give you a feedback in 3 days as we promised, but it will take us 3 weeks. If you can wait, we'll reactivate. If you can, just so you know. This, nuances in normal communication that we have, if you pick up the phone and you give people the entire context, it's missing, right? In this style of work.
Yeah, I mean, I won't say where, but I went into one of the businesses I went into, and ATSs are great now. They've got lots of automations. You can set up templates for everything. And the first thing on the ATS I went in was that you got a rejection after second interview, rejection after final interview. And these were automated emails that you could just click and send. One of the first things I did was going in and delete them. If they've got to, if they've met you face to face and you give them bad news face to face, even if it's a digital, it's a phone call, and you jump on it, I think you owe people that, because you don't physically interview, I think, through to interview stage.
Yeah.
As many people as people make out, per hiring manager or whatever. And I think you have to give that portion of time to give them that feedback, and at least offer that you can do it on a call or a video call, and allow them to have that time. And certainly if not on a call or a video call, you can certainly write them an email that is unique.
Of course.
Particularly with AI support now. I mean, you can
Say
put
this nicely.
you can write copy very, very quickly and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
you can take the feedback from the hiring manager's direct interview and chuck it into your internal. Obviously, don't put it external into any of the chat. But if you're in a big company, you have internal tools to do this that can summarize it a little bit better for you. That you can give it back in an email and show it in there. So, yeah, I mean that's the one thing I would like to see more of is less automated kind of feedback past a certain point. I think again we go back to the big company picture and stuff, and there'll be people watching this and people that are in situations where the sheer volume of the inbound they get doesn't allow for everything to be personalized, and that's completely understandable. You don't expect to get a call from Netflix to ask if you're going to renew your subscription. You know, it's you're a very small dot on their hemisphere, and it's not neat in there, but by the same measure. But I think once you take people through to kind of face-to-face interviews, they're meeting hiring managers, and you're spending an hour interviewing them stuff. 5 minutes to make the feedback personalized is very little to ask from the candidate.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is this real risk of over engineering things also maybe over automating some stuff. Do you see any flags with some of your clients? We're not going to name names, or some of your maybe previous experiences. Is that something that we should be wary about, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think what we need to do is kind of weigh up whether we're getting whether it's a synergy, whether we're getting an automation, whether we're getting a plus. Is it saving us significant time, the things we're putting in place, and why are we doing it? Rather than, oh, this is cool, let's do that. Let's see why, and also to always analyze the effect it has. So we talked about funnel metrics earlier. I would be very confident that some of this upfront automation has been added in the non-reply emails is making dropouts a lot harder. And some of the warning signs are I think people are trying to almost assess you before they've even spoken to you in some cases. So there's some people putting tools in where you've got to do 5 exams and write everything you've ever done in the entire world and stuff on an automation platform before you've even spoken to anybody or got any details. And then the details coming back in the other way are kind of in there. And I understand why people do it, because they're saving a lot of time internally. But I would ask, at what cost? What your ideal hire, that person that can really move the needle for your business, the person that really should be sat in that empty seat in your office. Is it worth the risk of turning that person off and then stepping away from it to save yourself 5 minutes, 6 minutes, whatever number you assign that's going to save you on there to get added detail? I think also as well, you open yourself up to getting, again, we're touching back on the kind of AI stuff, to get very generic AI-driven responses to most of what you ask for up front that isn't on a kind of human interaction. So I think some of those warning signs are there that you can be over automating. I think the real one is if you get an exact automated email for the same later the exact same email, just because you've been in a pipeline too long, or kind of someone's pressed a button internally, it goes back out to you again. So I've already seen that once. Those kind of things are kind of ruining your image. There, one of the talks we did at our shows was about employer brand with Emily, the one that Emily Firth and Anna and the great panel that we had there were talking about. But employer brand's really important. Personal brand's really important now. And you may not assign that email you may not attach with that email that you've sent. They will attach it to you and your company, the way that it hits them, the way that they felt emotionally when they opened it and read it, and that will be forever assigned to your brand, to your company, to you as a person if you're a recruiter that sent it. So you can be wary of that it's very easy to like a digital automated signature, but as far as the candidates coming, that's coming from you.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, we've we all asked for more tools in the recruitment world. We're like, give me more tools, give me performing ATSs, give me integration with the CRM, give me integration with the, HRIS. I want it all. And now I feel we're also missing a little bit the point on enabling recruitment teams to use them to their full capacities. I think I've seen this myself with some of the CRMs that we've implemented, and they are quite complex and they do amazing work, but ultimately you need to maximize the tool and make everybody use it. And again, a little bit from experience, the folks who are most allergic to using tools are actually the interviewers, not necessarily the TA teams, and they need to be as involved as in the enablement part as everybody else. So it is a lot of like lift work to get things done right. But there is, I feel, also maybe a pause moment that teams in general could have and say, what is our tech stack useful for, like our TA or HR tech stack, and useful for what can we eliminate, which I think everybody should have every 6 months, 12 months, a start, stop, continue exercise for every tech that they're using, because we just bring so many things in the picture, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think I've been in a lot of startups, and I do some advisory work with a lot of startups as well. And I think a good CFO is good for that stuff, because they go through the invoices on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis and what's this, and it might flag up some of the tools that people have and stuff like that. I'm all for automation tools and organization tools and things like that. If you need an extra tool to create a kind of Kanban board so you can visualize and see where people are in the process, so you're not dropping the ball. That's what tools are really great for, to make sure you don't miss stuff, to make sure you're not forgetting things, to make sure things are uniform and process driven, and moving through the process in the right way, to make sure we're not missing things, and that everything can be, and that we can get the data from how we do things, and we can see where we had success and where we had failures. I think where we're automating actions because they take time. Well, some things do take time, but some things are valuable to spend your time on, and others are. So yeah, I completely agree with you. I'd be a big advocate of reviewing quite regularly the tech stack and seeing how stacked it was, because it can. There's some companies where I've had the privilege of obviously going and seeing sort of behind the curtain of lots of different companies and things like that, and some have nothing at all that you would expect to have all the tools, and others have multiple different tools and things built that you would never expect, and some of them you question whether they need everything, or whether it's helping engage the cohort of people they're trying to attract into their business.
Yeah. Well, we talked quite a bit about this, let's say, enablement and conversation between recruiters and candidates, and making that effective from a technology use point of view, but still keeping the human touch. For the recruiters in general, we also have the other dimension where they need to go on the other side after they talk to a candidate and talk to hiring managers, talk to interviewers, really maybe deploy a new set of skills to actually have meaningful, productive conversations. And I'm very curious, to be honest. Here is a personal curiosity, because you have the Workfully platform where you have, recruiters signing up, you have them, as you say, personal branding, building a certain type of message of why should you pick me? Why am I better than Paul and everything else, right? There is a certain profile or persona that people start building them. But then they also have some direct conversations, right, with potential clients, hiring managers, interviewers, the sort. What do you see of? I don't want to create too much competition on your platform now, but for those who you see that are more successful, more at ease to create these relationships, to kind of get interesting and good contracts for them, what do they do different? What type of skills do they kind of push forward?
Yeah, it's an interesting point, actually. I mean, we try to highlight objective skills and metrics. Obviously, first and foremost, are the things that can be measured and validated and things like that on the platform. That's the idea of it, that you can see it, and it can be a meritocracy within there. But ultimately, yeah, if you are as an independent consultant and running your business, at some point you need to speak to the client that's looking to engage with you, and you need to be able to convince them that you're the person that's going to deliver for them.
Yeah.
And I would say in sales, in recruitment, in any kind of business relationship, whether it's internal, external, whatever, honesty is the biggest thing that I could sort of push
Mm.
across there. Being really kind of candid and honest about what it is you do well, what it is you don't do well, how you would expect things to go, not just sitting there and saying, yeah, no, I could do that. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, if you can't, and say, making sure you're setting expectations, because you're setting yourself up for failure if not anyway.
Mhm.
If the so you see it quite often with younger companies, so sort of, or younger companies and less experienced managers. Sometimes when they're first time hiring, their expectation of what's out there in the market, or the expectation of
Mhm.
the speed of a process, or things like that. I was having an interesting conversation with someone at our last event who is a CHRO here in Barcelona, and we were saying the kind of the hiring manager kind of comes to you and says, "Hey, I need this person to start in
Mhm.
30 days
Yeah.
time." They openly reckon, you go into your data and you say, well, the time to hire for this role historically is 60 days. So
Yeah.
it won't be 30 days. We could get lucky, but it's going to be 60 days, give or take. That's the average number. We've done this multiple times. We have lots of data,
Mhm.
60 days. So it's going to be 60 days. And the thing we do quite often is, because we're people pleasers, most recruiters, we're people, HR people are
Yeah.
people, try to make everybody happy, and when we just say yes, and I think, to go back to the bedroom, the things that the recruiters do well is that they really know what their metrics are, they really know their market, and they can give really good advice up front, even if it's the advice the client doesn't necessarily want to hear. Uh,
Mhm. Mhm.
but the reality of it needs to be there, because ultimately you will under deliver on promises made that you just can't complete.
It reminds me a lot of maybe a little mantra we had when I was working with booking.com, and we had massive teams of TA, and everybody was coming with a variety of, let's say, skills and backgrounds and ways of doing things. And I think what was uniting at some point, where the team was at its peak in terms of performance, was this idea of like under promise and over deliver. Just be very realistic, even maybe a bit cynical about the success chances, right? But do your best and deploy creative methods, and kind of, understand what needs to be delivered, and then surprise if you can, right? To actually do even more than was asked for.
Yeah,
But there was this idea of like, I don't know what I don't know, right? If I'm starting a project that is maybe a little bit funky, I can give you what I've experienced so far, but everything new has some piece of unknown, right? So just promising everything with no consideration for that always bites you back.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, pretending to better predict the future,
Yeah.
or anything. If something's completely new, you go into it saying, hey,
Yeah.
these are the most closely aligned data points we can find. So these are the things we think are most like this, but they are not exactly like this. And so we can assume that it will be between these 2 points in terms of
Yeah.
time or cost, or whatever it is you're trying to find, whatever data point you're trying to put into your original purpose. But it's really important to go back at the end of that process and see what the real data was. So, hey, what
Yeah.
was the salary in the end? And then look at how you made the budget assumption in the first place. What data did we pull from to get this, and how far were we from that, to see whether, when you get that same situation again, what are the relevant data points, what are the relevant things that you can pull from, that you already, the known things you have, to be able to assign that salary, or that time to hire, or the availability of talent. Because ultimately all data on this, so talent availability, is all out of date as of the second you receive it,
Yeah.
because it's a fluid
But that's your
situation.
data point. Yeah.
Yeah, so you always have to say, well, what were the best data points, what were the most
Hmm.
reliable data points, and
Hmm.
reassess how you got to the number in the first place.
Yeah. And to be honest, this skill of influencing also, because yes, you will have a lot of very stressed, rightfully, hiring managers, because they lost somebody in their team and now a whole project is put in danger, or the team is overworked. But if this hiring manager goes back and says, hey, we're going to have somebody in 2 weeks, don't worry too much, kind of let's carry on. And they're not going to have somebody in 2 weeks. They're going to have somebody in 2 months. You're going to have 6 other people who resign by that time, right? So just this level of building good, like teaching other people something or giving them a certain level of confidence in what comes next, it will help them in future conversations as well. But it comes a little bit with experience, I feel, as well, right? So you need to have the right mentors, you need to have the right training to have those maybe a bit tricky conversations sometimes, right?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, it's not easy as a TA person going into a meeting and seeing that the head of engineering has put headcount in for January that they don't currently have, and they're not going to get. You can sit there quietly and just hope that no one comes and asks you the question, and that you get lucky. Or you can put your hand up and say, hey, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah,
So you
exactly.
need to move that on there. If you've got a critical path assessment that you've done on your engineering deliverables, you need to move that needle to the right, because I can tell you at least 50% of those heads will not be in on that date.
Totally.
It's really vital that we do that for the businesses that we're in as internal TA, but also as external advisors as well. I mean, you both have kind of external advisors to business, but to give them that quality of information and to be really honest with them, because people are building, engineering teams or delivery teams or whatever it might be, are building their business plan or their own personal deliverables based on those headcount
Totally.
numbers. Actually, and if they're not going to be there, then you need to let them know as early as possible. And that's
Totally.
not you letting anybody down. Just to be
No.
clear to anybody listening, you're not the one that makes the time to hire, and people believing that you can just change the time to hire by working harder or
Yeah.
those kind of things. It's just a nonsense. I mean, time to hire is a pretty standard across businesses in general. I mean,
Yeah.
they tech businesses tend to be very similar. Engineering, you can move the needle slightly. Some companies outperform others, but it's a relatively known data point across most industries of roughly where you're going to be,
Yeah.
particularly if you've been recruiting as a company for a long time.
You need the granularity, but sometimes you don't need to have worked yourself on that. You can get that information from a lot of other places. Either you call somebody in another team, you get this information from LinkedIn Insights. There are so many sources. We're almost at the end, Paul. Like I feel we could do this for longer, and it's been super insightful to hear your experience, but also your kind of personal opinion. I'm happy you could share this freely here with us. For those who's been listening, we have 9 more minutes, 8 minutes and a half. So if you have any questions, shoot them up. I'm going to put them on the screen. To close off, Paul, I think for me also it's a little bit maybe a small debate. So when we started Fair Barcelona last year, the point was to put maybe a bit Barcelona on the European map when it comes to insights, when it comes to good work being done in the DI talent space, and because it was a bit of a pilot, right? We didn't necessarily do a lot of outreach. We didn't necessarily try to pull too many people in our story because we were also afraid that we will disappoint, to be honest. I mean, I was. Things went quite well. And this year, what we've done different was this community partnerships, which we have also with Workfully. And I feel it has been a very interesting journey. We have similar partnerships with Talent Crunch in Berlin, with HR Collective in Austria, with HR Fool again Munich, with we all in Madrid. Like we try to maybe have some other areas where we know people care, first of all, about this type of topics. It's not just diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's talent strategy, is workforce planning, is a lot of nuance around how do we integrate people, whether it's accessibility, whether it's neurodiversity, whether it's gender, whether it's a lot of stuff. But in general, we kind of try to, I think, all us, these actors in this stage, we're trying to just do a little bit better in each moment that matter, whether it's hiring, whether it's performance management, whether it's even restructuring. We could do that better. Where do you see maybe the value? Why was it interesting for you personally, and maybe for Workfully as well, to say yes, we want to be associated with this type of movement? It is something that we want to be part of as a story.
Yeah, I think it's essential that something like FAIR exists, and that there is a place where the learners can be people can access learning, because smaller businesses don't necessarily have a DE&I champion within the team, or so many scale ups and startups or small businesses where HR, talent acquisition, diversity, payroll is one person. They are everything, and they can't know everything and have everything. So access to great information, and you cultivate a speakers list that's incredible from sort of around Europe and over the globe and stuff, that can give this valuable information. And people that think that diversity, inclusion, belonging, all of these topics are fads or gimmicks or things that are going to go away, or something that people just trying to make it's insane. It's as integral as the interview process and the process that you need to. You have no idea what background the best software developer for your team comes from. You have no idea what their story is. You have no idea until you find them. And if you have no idea how to create a workspace that they want to work, or how to interact with them, or how to reach out to them, or how to speak to them, or how to make them feel comfortable in an interview situation, you will not hire the best talent. You will hire the best talent that was willing to speak to you, and that's not the best talent. You won't get the best people in your business if you can only get the ones who can put up with your toxic culture or whatever it might be. You'll just get the best talent that can put up with your toxic culture. And those, again, are not the same things. So all of these things are integral. Put aside the fact that it's just the right thing to do for the world.
Yeah.
It is essential for the success of any business to understand that we are all different, and that we all have different stories and different backgrounds, and that we won't look and feel and sound the same. And if you don't do that, you will never get the best talent, because you don't have access to the full plethora of the search.
Yeah, you stay pretty boxed in, and I think you've actually nailed this. Like you're just gonna speak to those who are available to speak to you or interested to speak to you. And even I think at some point when I was doing a lot of work for gender balance in tech, we uncovered this research that it's just an example, right? To relate to what you're saying, that women in general would need 5-6 extra touch points in the recruitment process to actually get them interested, because the way or the implications of them changing jobs are much higher than for other categories in this story. So even just understanding this piece of information, or the way different communities need, whether it's channel, whether it's style, whether it's type of interaction, will save you a lot of heartbreak and like getting no's from candidates if you do a lot of sourcing and outreach, but also just tapping into markets that maybe your competitors are not in, and they will never be in because they never really tried. Of course, I would like to think that most businesses want to do better in the world in general. So that's an extra point that they get when they try to put that in there as well. But it takes intent.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes buy-in. It takes then. It's not easy either. I've rolled out programs and initiatives at lots of companies, and some of the reactions to those programs have surprised me and continue to surprise me. In terms of those, it's not an easy, and it's why people like yourself are so needed, that do shout about it and from the rooftops and put these kind of conferences on and stuff like that, because it's not easy to be the voice of some of these topics, and in some cases it can be a detriment to your career in some companies, and but particularly with some of the stuff that's going on across the ocean at the moment and things like that. I think it's really important that we continue to know it's the right thing to do, but that we have to continue it. And to say that the FAIR conference is absolutely the place you need to go if you want to learn about this stuff, and also meet people that can help you. I've had conversations with
That's the thing.
3 or 4 people that were either speakers or attendees at that
Yeah.
on different topics, and they've been really helpful, and hopefully I've been helpful for them as well on other topics and things like that. So it is a community that helps each other out. So you'll meet people there that can continue to help you out as well.
You're an amazing champion, an amazing ally, very thoughtful, very mindful, very curious. And I think that makes a lot of difference. But I think both of us have just seen the positive impact when you prioritize this, and have seen the result both in the team vibe, if you want to call it, right? But in the company's success. And I stand by that. Like, no fear. There is no particular thing that will deter me from having these tough conversations. For those again listening and maybe even listening after this, yes, it's important to prepare ourselves, to document ourselves, to really understand the other side perspective. That's why active listening is important, and this kind of influencing, negotiating skills on that. Nobody will, come your way straight up if they feel very differently than you. But just engaging in a constructive way has been absolutely beneficial for so many reasons. And I think this was also my experience, and maybe my nice surprise with the conference, that so many partnerships were born, and organizations, even some that I'm kind of working with now, they just got the courage because they didn't really know where to start. But having a forum of, and also the people who are so interested in moving the needle, having that level of involvement and level of insight, they're like, oh, but we can do that. It doesn't seem so hard anymore because these people have done it. So case studies like that have been quite revelatory for some others who are like, I don't know where to start. What could I do? And I'm like, oh, this happened. Let's do a version of that works for us.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, it was very, very valuable for me last year, and I have no doubt it'll be as valuable this year.
If people in your community are interested, there is this little code here that they can use, of course, for a 20% off. Everybody who's been with us today, I really want to thank you. Please connect with Paul if you're not connected. Follow Workfully's journey. I think it's super interesting and a very nice example of not just a company, but a community that is growing really fast, really nicely, and setting a new standard. I like that. I like new standards. So kudos for everything you're doing, and thank you so much for joining me today.
No, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. I really enjoyed it.
Nice. See you soon, everybody.
Bye.